Hey up me ducks, it's Simon here. I've been putting off all morning doing this video because of the wind. The wind is really howling at the moment, but I think at the moment it's as good as it's going to get. So I decided to come on and take the opportunity while the wind seems to have dropped a little bit. So, as promised yesterday, when I showed the Terra Volatile, which, gosh, I am loving this deck. I did readings with it last night, I've done readings with it this morning. I haven't yet, this is my project for this afternoon, I haven't yet had a dive into the book, but that's a Sunday afternoon activity that I'm going to be doing. But when I showed that video yesterday, I mentioned that also when I traded for Terra Volatile with Rob, who lives and works in the city here, I bought from him the Somnia Tarot, the illustrated edition. And I've already got a walkthrough up of the Somnia Tarot. So atmospheric, so incredibly powerful, this deck. Quite haunting as well, as you can just see from the cover. And I wanted this version because mainly I wanted to see kind of how they compared from having a photographic deck to an illustrated deck, whether the energy, the mood or anything like that changes and shifts. But also because at the time, it was last July, I went to see ABBA, the ABBA Arena show in London, and I was able to go into Watkins Books for the first time in like 5 years. And I bought one or two things, this being one of them, and I didn't quite have enough money to get the book, which I think was around £25. And there was a little white book in here, and I thought, well, that will have to do for now. And then I heard that the illustrated tarot version comes with a book that actually has the same amount of information if you was buying the larger version of this. So I thought, well, how cool then to get this deck and have a book that would work for both. So what I intend to do for this video is just to, I've not seen this deck other than, well, no, that's not completely true. I put this deck in order, so I've seen a lot of the cards, but I wasn't really paying that much attention to them because I was just like, oh, that's a sword, that's a cup, that's a one, and then putting them in order. And I've done the same with this deck. I've resetted the decks so that we can have this side by side. So one of the first things I noticed is this box is deeper, but that will be to accommodate the book that's in there. But I like the kind of, here comes that wind again. I like the similarity in terms of the design. We do have the different cards. This is from the Two of Swords. So, you know, it's not exactly the same, but in terms of the gold borders and the kind of font that's being used and the style, particularly here when you see on the side, you have the Somnia Tarot Illustrated Edition by Nicholas Bruce, Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruce, and the back looks pretty much the same, although they've used different images. This box is a two-part box, as you can see, whereas this one is a clamshell box. I don't mind either really. They're both really sturdy, so they protect the decks well. So yeah, I don't mind. I like clamshell boxes, but I also quite like two-part boxes. So in terms of that, this one has the little white book, which has very very basic, as you can see. So, and this one, of course, has the book. Love the design here on the inside. Can you see that? It's really, really pretty with the gold foiling, and on the inside here. This is the underneath. So in this one, it is just, I say just, but it's a plain box, you know, cardboard, just bare cardboard showing. So the presentation does feel a little bit more luxurious here. We've got the compass symbols here, and it's this metallic gold foiling. So really nice in terms of the presentation. There's two of these little promotional codes for the Somnia Tarot. So it's telling you that there's 10% off your next order. And both were inside that one. And then there are some noticeable differences between the cards. Firstly, there is an additional art card here inside the illustrated. As you can see, it's a really nice image actually. And at first I thought, oh, is it an alternative like Ace of Wands? We've got them, this figure here holding like a fiery wand. These are the backs, by the way, which I think are beautiful. So that's an additional card, and you'll see the rest line up. So this one has no gilding, but it does have that nice white finish to it. It's not just card, it's got that nice white finish which replicates the borders on each side, whereas this one has gold gilding, and it is in keeping with the backs. So we've got this kind of maroon burgundy colour with the gold on top, whereas this one is just a printing navy blue and white. So I do prefer the backs on this one. I like me some gilding, I like a bit of bling, but I think it's nicely done. This one is borderless, with the exception of the bottom of each card, well, except for the minors. But for the majors and the court cards and the aces, we've got this panel at the bottom, but borderless image. This one is bordered all around, which I quite like actually, because this is a photographic deck. It kind of feels like one of the old-fashioned type photographs, a bit like Polaroid, but I don't know. Years ago, when I look back in my parents' photo albums, lots of photos would have these white borders on them, so it kind of frames the picture quite nicely. There is a size difference in the cards, as you can see. Let's turn it round, do it back to back. So the photographic deck is taller and wider than the illustrated deck. Is that because of the image? If you line it up, not really, no, because the image in here is smaller than the image there. So just two different styles really. So let's bring the camera down and let's take a close-up look at the differences. I suppose what I ought to do first, because this deck obviously was released before the illustrated version, and there'll be people like me who thinks, well, is it worth getting both? Particularly as I've just mentioned, you know, one of the reasons I wanted it was to be able to get a copy of the book. So we ought to perhaps have a look very quickly at the book. This is beautiful. I love, again, it's very in keeping with the whole aesthetic of the illustrated version. But this kind of metallic cover, look at that, really, really beautiful. So you've obviously got your contents, major arcana, and then each of your suits. You do get a preface at the beginning. Ooh, flicked ahead there. What is that? Yeah, and then we go into the cards. So you get your keywords, and then a bit of information, and that continues all the way through. You do get some illustrations, although not for every card. They just appear sporadically through the book. So it's an okay book, but I am relieved that I didn't spend the amount of money on a separate book for this. Okay, so it's really cleverly done, actually. I like the fact that, I'm just going to check cardstock. This actually feels a little thicker, but they are the same because it's the same amount of cards and they line up. Maybe this will be because it's small that it perhaps feels a bit thicker. Cardstock for both cards is lovely. We've got this nice matte finish. Because this has this gold metallic embossing, this feels raised. So as you put your fingers across it, you can feel every line. It's got a nice texture to it. But yeah, both are beautiful. Here's our magician. And it's interesting. I don't think, for me, the illustrated version would replace this one in terms of wanting to do that. We often talk about, Moran and I talked about it last night in his interview, about decks. We use certain decks for certain things like inner child work, shadow work, etc. This deck does go deep, but I'm not sure whether an illustrated version, although it's fantastic, I love the way it's been done, hits in the same way or packs the same punch as the photographic version. There's something about the images in this deck that is quite haunting, as I said. And actually you can see some of her face in this Empress card. I also wonder if, when creating the photographic deck, whether the illustrations were designed first so they knew how to get the setup that they wanted, and therefore they'd got the sketches. Anyway, it might even tell you that in the book. I love the Lovers cards. What I think is quite clever here in the illustrated version, by the use of the yellow sky, the very blue water. It does remind me of an RWS card. The Chariot is brilliant. We have Strength at 8. We've got this this trap here, opening the jaws of this trap. The Hermit. And, you know, I've mentioned before, I'm not a huge fan. There are a couple of decks that are photographic, like Urban Tarot, the Gaian Tarot, where I absolutely love them. You know, they're fond decks in my collection. But sometimes photographic decks don't hit the mark for me. This one does. And I think it's because of the style. I mean, the shadow here in the water, so clever. This is one of the most epic death cards, and the one that we see on the front of the box, minus the flag for some reason. I often wondered why. Oh, actually, and he's turning sideways, so you can tell it's the same scene, but yeah, the flag's removed and he's turning sideways. But love this death card. Also, this temperance card, it reminds me of the film A Ghost Story. Don't know if anybody's seen that. It's, I suppose it's a bit like this deck. You know, some people really love the film like I do, and other people are like, oh wow, well that's a couple of hours of my life I'll never get back. But it's a film that left an impression, as does this deck. And I get it. Some people find this deck too disturbing. I don't, because if there's an image that disturbs me, that kind of prompts me to look deeper into why am I feeling the way I'm feeling when I look at certain images. Look at this different scale and perspective of the moon here, the crescent moon between the clouds, where it's an actual moon, obviously, in that image. Love the sun card. Sun card is brilliant. Judgment. It's so calming when that wind has dropped. The world. Oh, spoke too soon. And then we have our minors. I'll just, for now, I think I've said all I need to say really. We'll just enjoy the music and have a look. Just have a look at the images side by side. Okay, so there we have it. That's the two Somnia decks side by side. I think the illustrated one is really well done. It's very true to the original, with a few exceptions of perhaps some kind of colour changes to skies and things like that. It's done really, really well. One of the things I like about the illustrated is the fact that some of the cards here are quite shadowy and you don't automatically see the details, whereas the illustrated highlights that. Let me see if I can, I think there's some, let's look at the wands. There was a card in the wands. Yeah, so if we look at something like the Seven of Wands, it's very shadowy. But then if we go to the Seven of Wands here, you can see a lot more detail. So you can see the redness of the shield that is holding. The figures here just look like a mass of darkness, whereas here you can see that there's actually two figures here at the front, which you kind of lose in that sense. I think also if we look at the Ten of Swords, yeah, so the Ten of Swords, all I could see there is two hands coming out of this chest, whereas if we go, where are we? Swords, come on, 10. Look at the difference here. And again, the sky has been completely changed, but you can see the shoulders and head, and a lot more detail in here. I can hardly see that there's a red cloth here at all. It's just shadowy. So there's a lot more detail because it's illustrated and you've got the pen work and stuff like that. So I like it for that sense, certainly. But yeah, I'm glad that I've got it in my collection. There's still something about this deck in particular, though, that I find just so atmospheric, so emotive. It really gives me the feels. I don't necessarily think I'll get that same hit with the illustrated, but I think it's so well done. And if this deck had just been released on its own, would I have bought it? Possibly. But for me, I wouldn't want this without this, if that makes sense. All right, well, thank you for watching. You'll be glad I muted when I did, because the wind really picked up. In fact, I might insert that at the end. But yes, so I will be back in the week. I'm expecting something midweek. And then Friday, I'm on Giselle's channel, Mad Witch. I'm being interviewed. Tables are being turned. And Saturday is the new series. So Tarot Talk, spotlight on new deck releases with the fabulous Cheryl from the Oneness Emporium. So hopefully you'll be able to join us later in the week. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend, everyone, and until next time, go in peace. Namaste and blessed be.